I want to tell you about the day my life ended. And the day it began again. Same day. Same bridge. Same fog. But two completely different men. My name is David. And for the first 32 years of my life, I was a master builder, not of houses, but of walls. Beautiful walls. Efficient walls. Walls that had kept me safe, successful, and completely, utterly alone. Let me take you back. I grew up in a house where the word love was used like a coupon, redeemable only under specific conditions. My father was a civil engineer, and he treated emotions like seismic activity, unpredictable, dangerous, and best managed with reinforced concrete. My mother left when I was 7. One suitcase. A Tuesday afternoon. The sound of her car engine fading like a lost radio signal. My father never said her name again. He called her departure a structural failure. And from that day forward, he taught me one lesson in 1,000 different ways. Trust no one. Verify everything. Your feelings are the enemy. I was a good student. Not of math or history, though I excelled there too, but of him. I learned to compress grief into ambition. I learned to fold loneliness into the origami of productivity. By the time I was 16, I hadn't cried in 7 years. Not once. I told myself this was strength. The world seemed to agree. Teachers praised my maturity. Coaches admired my composure. Girls found me mysterious, until they found me cold, and then they found someone else. I didn't mind. The fortress was warm enough. College was 4 years of perfecting the art of insulation. I majored in business with a concentration in operations management. I graduated summa cum laude. I landed a job at a Fortune 500 company before I even walked across the stage. By 25, I was the youngest team lead in my division. By 28, I was a senior director. And by 30, I had met and married Claire. Claire was everything I was not. She laughed like a thunderstorm, loud, unpredictable, impossible to ignore. She grew sunflowers in our tiny apartment window box, even though the landlord said they'd die without more light. She cried at commercials. She sent handwritten thank you notes to people she barely knew. I fell in love with her the way a desert falls in love with rain, desperately, silently, unsure what to do with all that water. Our wedding was small. 40 people. She wanted 100. I negotiated her down to 40 because large gatherings are inefficient. She looked at me with those green eyes, the ones that could see right through every wall I'd ever built, and she said, "Okay, David. 40. But you have to dance with me at the reception." I didn't dance. I stood in the corner and shook hands and made small talk with her mother while Claire twirled with her father and her college roommates. She caught my eye across the room and smiled. I smiled back. But I didn't walk over. I didn't take her hand. I didn't let myself be seen. That was the beginning of the end. The first 2 years were good. Not great, I don't think I was capable of great, but good. Claire would cook elaborate meals while I answered emails at the kitchen table. She'd try to tell me about her day, and I'd listen with one ear while mentally reviewing quarterly projections. She'd cry about something, a friend's diagnosis, a sad news story, a beautiful sunset, and I'd hand her a tissue and say, "Let's focus on solutions." I thought I was being helpful. I thought I was being strong. She once told me, "David, sometimes I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to sit in it with me." I didn't understand what that meant. So I nodded, changed the subject, and went back to my spreadsheet. The cracks started appearing in year 3. Small ones at first. She stopped cooking elaborate meals. She started eating dinner alone on the couch while I worked late at the office. The sunflowers in the window box died, and she didn't plant new ones. I noticed. Of course I noticed. I just didn't know what to do. So I worked harder. More hours. More promotions. More walls. Our conversations became transactions. Did you pick up the dry cleaning? Yes. What's for dinner? Chicken. Did you call my mother? No. Why not? I forgot. She stopped crying in front of me. I thought this was progress. I was a fool. The end came on a Tuesday, just like my mother left on a Tuesday. I came home at 8:47 p.m. The apartment was dark. I found the note on the dining room table. David, you live in a castle with no doors. I got tired of shouting through the moat. I hope someday you learn how to let someone in. I really did love you. Claire. I read it 17 times. Then I folded it neatly, placed it in my briefcase next to the merger documents, and went to bed. I did not cry. I told myself she was weak. I buried the pain under a promotion. Then another. At 32, I became a regional director, one of the youngest in company history. I had a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. I had a salary that would have made my father weep with pride. And absolutely no one to call when I couldn't sleep at 3 a.m. The insomnia started 3 months after Claire left. At first, just an hour here or there. Then 2. Then 3. Then I stopped going to bed altogether. I'd work until 2 a.m., collapse on the couch, and be back at my desk by 6 o'clock. My assistant brought me extra strength coffee without being asked. My boss called me dedicated. My body called me a liar. By November, I hadn't slept more than 3 consecutive hours in 10 weeks. My vision blurred. My hands shook. I lost 12 pounds. But I still showed up. I still smiled. I still pretended the fortress wasn't collapsing from the inside. The conference in San Francisco was supposed to be a victory lap. I'd just closed the biggest deal of my career. My boss said, "David, go enjoy yourself. You've earned it." So I flew to San Francisco. I checked into a hotel with a marble lobby. I attended the morning sessions. I shook more hands. And then, at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday, always a Tuesday, I walked out of the conference center, got into a taxi, and said the last place anyone expected me to say. GoldenGateBridge. The middle, if you can. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror. He was an older man named Hassan. He didn't ask why. He just said, "Rough day, my friend." You could say that. He nodded and pulled into traffic. When he stopped at the bridge's visitor area, he said, "I'll wait 10 minutes. If you're not back, I'll call someone." Just my rule. "Don't bother," I said. "I have a return ticket." I got out and walked onto the bridge. The fog was thick that day, the kind that makes San Francisco feel like a dream you can't wake up from. The bridge's orange towers disappeared into the gray. The wind was cold and wet, cutting through my suit jacket like paper. I walked to the railing. Not running. Not hesitating. Just walking. The water was 220 feet below. Gray and churning. I'd read somewhere that the impact shatters your bones instantly. No pain. No second thoughts. Just the end of a story that had stopped being worth telling. I leaned on the railing. The metal was cold against my palms. I thought about Claire's note. I thought about my mother's taillights. I thought about my father in the garage. Feelings are leaks. You find a leak, you patch it. I had patched every leak. I had built the perfect fortress. And I was standing on a bridge, alone, At 32 years old, with absolutely nothing left to protect. That's when I heard the words, "You look like you haven't eaten a proper meal in weeks." I turned. A woman stood about 10 feet away. She was in her late 60s or early 70s. It was hard to tell because her face held the kind of ageless warmth that made you forget to count wrinkles. She wore a bright purple coat that looked like it had been bought from a church bazaar in 1987, sensible black shoes, and a headscarf tied just so. In one hand, she carried a plastic bag from a grocery store. In the other, a small thermos. She was not a therapist. She was not a hero. She was, unmistakably, an auntie. "I'm fine," I said. My automatic weapon of a tongue. She made a sound TSK that seemed to come from somewhere deep in her soul. "Fine," she said, rolling the word around like it tasted bad. Fine is what people say when they don't want to admit they're falling apart. She took a step closer, not timid, not aggressive. Just auntie-like. "I'm stale. Everyone calls me Auntie Stale." I didn't ask. "No," she agreed. "You didn't. But I came anyway. That's what aunties do." She set her grocery bag down and unscrewed the thermos. The smell of hot chocolate, rich, dark, slightly cinnamon, rose into the cold air. "You're not going to jump while an old woman is standing here. Too much paperwork for me. So we are going to stand together for a bit, and you're going to drink this, and then we'll see." I stared at her. "You don't even know me. I know you're wearing a suit that costs more than my first car, and you're standing on a bridge in November fog, and your eyes look like you haven't slept since summer." She held out the thermos cup. "That's enough to start." Something about her, the purple coat, the no-nonsense voice, the way she didn't ask permission, reminded me of the aunties I'd watched at my friends' houses growing up. The ones who fed you whether you were hungry or not. The ones who told you the truth because they loved you enough to risk your anger. I took the cup. The hot chocolate was perfect. Not too sweet. Not too hot. It warmed my frozen fingers and did something else, something I couldn't name, to the frozen place behind my ribs. "Thank you," I said. Auntie Stale nodded. "Now? Tell me." "Tell you what?" "Tell me why a young man with good shoes and a decent haircut is standing on the edge of the world." She leaned against the railing next to me, close enough that our elbows almost touched. Not crowding. Just present. I opened my mouth to say nothing. Automatic response, the wall, the fortress, but the hot chocolate was still warm in my chest, and the fog was thick around us, and for some reason, the lies wouldn't come. "I don't know how to do this anymore," I heard myself say. The words came out raw, scuffed, nothing like my polished corporate cadence. I built everything right. Career. Reputation. Control. And I'm standing here because I'd rather jump than admit I failed. Auntie Stale didn't gasp. She didn't reach for her phone. She didn't say, "Think of your family," or "It gets better," or any of the things I'd braced myself to hear. She just nodded, slowly, like she had heard this story 100 times before. Maybe she had. Then she turned to look at me, really look at me, and spoke the 3 words that changed my life forever. Not "I love you." Not "You'll be okay." Not "God has a plan." She said, "Stay a little." I blinked. "What?" She gestured to the fog with her thermos. "Don't leave. Don't fix anything. Don't climb back inside that head of yours and start building again. Just stay a little. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. 5 minutes won't change anything." 5 minutes changed my whole life once, she said. "And I'm not asking you to change your life. I'm asking you to finish your hot chocolate." I looked down at the cup in my hands. It was half empty. That's ridiculous. Most good things are ridiculous, she said. Now drink. We stood in silence for the first 2 minutes. The wind whipped off the bay. The fog swirled around us. Auntie Stale hummed something under her breath, an old hymn, maybe, or a lullaby. It was the kind of humming that said, I'm not going anywhere. At 3 minutes, she started talking. Not at me. Just alongside me. My sister's boy jumped from this bridge 23 years ago, she said. Marcus. He was 24. Good boy. Kind boy. But he didn't have anyone to tell him to stay. He didn't have an old woman with a thermos and a purple coat and too much time on her hands. She paused, watching the water. I've been coming here ever since. 3 days a week. Rain or shine. I bring hot chocolate in the winter and lemonade in the summer. And I wait. For what? For someone who looks like they need 3 words. She turned to me. You're the 47th person I've asked to stay. 47. 36 said yes. 11 said no and walked away. I don't know if the 11 are still alive. I pray for them every night. But the 36. She smiled. The 36 are still here. Some of them sent me Christmas cards. One of them named her daughter after me. Can you imagine? A little baby named Stale. I almost laughed. Almost. What about the other 11? Auntie Stale's smile faded, but her eyes didn't. I don't know. But I know this. If I stop coming, then the 12th, the next one, and the one after that won't even have the choice. So I keep coming. I keep asking. Because staying is a choice, and every single person deserves to be given that choice out loud. At 4 minutes, something cracked inside me. Not the wall was already cracked, but the foundation beneath it. The bedrock my father had poured when I was 7 years old. I thought about Claire. About the sunflowers. About the note. I hope someday you learn how to let someone in. I thought about my mother's car fading into the rain. I thought about Auntie Stale, coming to this bridge 3 days a week for 23 years, because her sister's boy didn't get to hear 3 small words. Can I ask you something? I said. Of course. Why do you say stay a little? Not stay forever. She nodded like I'd asked a very good question. Because forever is too long. Forever scares people. Forever feels like a prison. She tapped the railing with her fingernail. But a little. A little is just 5 minutes. Anyone can do 5 minutes. And sometimes, after 5 minutes, you can do 5 more. And then 5 more. And then one day, you wake up and realize you've been staying for 23 years, and somewhere along the way, staying stopped being hard. At 5 minutes, I was still there. My hot chocolate was gone. The fog was still thick. And Auntie Stale was still standing next to me, humming her hymn, wearing her purple coat like armor. 5 minutes, I said. 5 minutes, she agreed. How do you feel? I thought about lying. I thought about saying fine and walking back to the hotel and pretending this conversation had never happened. But I was tired in a way that went all the way down to the bone, and Auntie Stale had hot chocolate, and a purple coat, and 23 years of showing up. Like I don't know who I am anymore, I said. She nodded. Good. Good. Good, she repeated. Because the person you thought you were was trying to kill you. Sounds like it's time to meet the person you actually are. I stayed another 20 minutes. Then another 30. We talked about Marcus, her sister's boy who loved reggae music and couldn't dance. We talked about my father and his reinforced concrete. We talked about Claire and the sunflowers. We talked about the 11 who walked away, and the 36 who stayed. At some point, the fog began to lift. Not all at once, but slowly, like a curtain being drawn back. The orange towers of the bridge reappeared. The water below turned from gray to blue. A sailboat glided beneath us, silent and white. Auntie Stale reached into her grocery bag and pulled out something wrapped in wax paper. "Eat," she said. It was a piece of fried plantain. Still warm. Sweet and salty and perfect. I ate it. "Good," she said again. "Now? You're going to go back to your hotel. You're going to sleep. Even if you don't think you can, you're going to lie down and close your eyes and tell yourself that staying is enough for today. Tomorrow, you're going to call someone. Anyone. You're going to say, 'I'm not okay,' and you're going to let them hear your voice crack. What if I don't have anyone to call?" She looked at me with those eyes brown and deep and full of the kind of love that didn't ask for anything in return. "You have me now. I'll give you my number. But you have to promise me one thing." "What's that?" She reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were warm and strong and covered in the kind of age spots that come from decades of cooking and cleaning and holding on to people who needed holding. "Promise me you'll burn something tomorrow morning," she said. "Toast. An egg. I don't care what. Just burn something on purpose, and eat it, and remember that imperfection is the whole point of being alive." I promised. She gave me her phone number written on a piece of brown paper bag. She hugged me, a real hug, the kind that squeezes the air out of your lungs and leaves something warm behind. And then she picked up her grocery bag and her thermos and walked away, disappearing into the remnants of the fog like a dream you can't quite remember when you wake up. I stood on the bridge for another hour. Not because I was still thinking about jumping, I wasn't, but because I was thinking about staying. About fried plantains. About purple coats. About the difference between a fortress and a home. When I finally walked back to the visitor area, the taxi was still there. Hassan was still there, reading his newspaper. 10 minutes, my friend," he said without looking up. "You took almost 2 hours. I got in the back seat. You said you'd wait 10 minutes. Hassan folded his newspaper. "I also said I'd call someone if you weren't back. You came back. So I don't have to call anyone." He started the engine. "Where to?" "Grocery store," I said. "I need bread." That was 10 years ago. I'm 42 now. I don't have a corner office anymore. I quit that job 6 months after the bridge. My boss thought I was having a breakdown. Maybe I was. But it was the kind of breakdown that builds something new from the rubble. I became a carpenter. Not the kind who builds walls. The kind who builds tables, sturdy, imperfect, beautiful tables where people can sit and eat and argue and laugh and burn the toast together. I have a workshop behind my house. It smells like sawdust and coffee and the particular sweetness of second chances. I start every morning the same way. I make a pot of dark roast, I slice a piece of sourdough, and I put it in the toaster until it's just the side of charcoal. Then I eat it slowly. Auntie Stale came to my wedding. She wore the purple coat. She danced with Elena's grandmother and told everyone who would listen that I was her bridge boy. She cried during the vows and didn't bother to hide it. She came to the hospital when Maggie was born. She held my daughter before I did some kind of anti-privilege, she said, and whispered something in her ear that made Maggie open her tiny eyes for the first time. "Stay a little," Auntie Stale whispered to her. "The world isn't ready for you yet, but it will be. Just stay a little." Maggie is 6 now. She calls Auntie Stale every Sunday on FaceTime. They make plantains together, Maggie in our kitchen, Auntie Stale in her small apartment across the bay. They burn them sometimes on purpose and laugh about it. Auntie Stale is 79 now. Her knees hurt. Her eyes are getting bad. She doesn't go to the bridge as often anymore. Her daughter drives her once a week instead of 3 times. But she still makes the hot chocolate. She still wears the purple coat. Someone has to be there, she told me last week. Even if I can only come once a week. Even if I only catch one person a year. That one person has a whole life ahead of them. A whole life of burnt toast and sunflowers and people who love them. I still go to the bridge sometimes. Not on Tuesdays, I can't handle the Tuesdays, but on random days. Foggy days. Days when I need to remember. I stand at the railing. I look down at the water 220 feet below. And I don't see an ending anymore. I see a beginning I almost missed. Sometimes I see other people standing the way I stood. Already gone. Waiting for their bodies to catch up. And I walk over to them slowly, carefully, the way Auntie Stale walked over to me, and I lean on the railing next to them. You look like you could use some hot chocolate, I say. Some of them ignore me. Some of them tell me to go away. But some of them, the ones who are ready, the ones who just need permission, look back. And I give them the 3 words that changed my life forever. Stay a little. Sometimes I bring plantains. Sometimes I just bring my presents. But always, always, I bring the memory of a woman in a purple coat who showed up on a bridge 23 years after her nephew jumped, because she believed that everyone deserves the chance to choose. That's not a bad legacy for 3 small words. So here's what I want you to know, whoever you are, wherever you're reading this. You don't need a bridge. You don't need a fog. You don't need an old woman with a thermos. You just need permission. Permission to stop building walls. Permission to let the leaks happen. Permission to stay, not because everything is fixed, not because you have all the answers, but because staying is the bravest thing any of us ever do. Burn the toast. Plant the sunflowers. Dance in the kitchen. Call the person you've been afraid to call. And when the world feels like a bridge, and the water looks too close and the fog won't lift, remember. Stay a little. Just 5 minutes. That's all. See how it feels. Because the 3 words that change your life might come from an auntie in a purple coat. Or a taxi driver with a rule. Or a daughter who asks the same question every night. Or a voice inside you that's been whispering all along, drowned out by the noise of your own walls. Those 3 words are already yours. You just have to let them in. Stay a little. It changed my life. It can change yours too.